Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DIDIOTS podcast. Tonight, we are gonna get into some real fun, some real doozies. We're talking about endogenic topics.
It's a fun one, and we're probably gonna get a little pissed off.
Things might get a
um,
little heated.
yeah, because the one take fake disorder cringe got right, and that's what
The
I hate about it. Um, but okay, I want to start this off. The name of this is misleading, okay, but there is non-traumagenic plurality, basically meaning singlets like code switching, like, and having like that duality with themselves. That is a thing. That is also caused by structural dissociation. We all start off as ego states. People can have like different facets of themselves without being a system. But to be a system with multiple alters and multiple identities, you have to have trauma. I'm starting it off with that. It's a traumagenic disorder, baby.
It's how the brain done do work.
And so it's endogenic systems, for those who don't know what they are, believe that they don't have trauma to be a system. Now, it's completely possible for their trauma to be completely blocked out by amnesia barriers. That's completely possible. But to work through DID, you need to acknowledge the trauma and go through it and see everything you went through and all of that stuff to heal. That is a huge part of therapy, is breaking down the amnesia barriers and finding that trauma. You may not have realized what was trauma. Denial is a hell of a drug. Thank you, Polaroid. Denial is a hell of a drug. Once you're in denial, you can get stuck in a denial loop. And it is not fun to be in. But once you acknowledge your trauma and acknowledge that, you can start the healing process in a more rich way. Because it's a traumagenic disorder. You're gonna have trauma if you have multiple identities. And that's something you have to accept in yourself. Is you went through something. Or some things.
And like I know a lot of like people who say that they're endogenics, they're like, oh, you if you say that this is that you have to have trauma to have this disorder, then you're forcing trauma onto other people. And it's just like that's no, sweetie, honey.
You have trauma that you're not remembering, dear.
Just recognizing you have trauma and accepting that you have trauma does not mean that you have to immediately then go digging for that trauma and face it. Like, you should do that when you're ready, when you're capable, but just accepting that you have trauma is not a bad thing.
Right. And and when you find it, you don't have to dive in head first. You don't have to go looking for all of your trauma. We just found out that something we actually remembered was trauma. Because we didn't realize it was traumatic. We were talking to our therapist about it, and she was like, dude, like, hi, that's a trauma memory. And I'm like, oh, fuck. All right. But
we're still very in the dark about, like, the trauma that we experienced as a young child that caused the system. We know some things that happened when we were little that were traumatic, but we're still very much like, trauma? Huh? What? But
yeah,
what?
but you acknowledge you have it.
Yeah.
Because at least there are, like, are there some instances you can remember and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm definitively a traumagenic system.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah, that's how we were.
That's why I'm...
because
like, I'm really glad that when we were doing research, we were doing it specifically about DID and OSDD, and we weren't, like, we didn't learn about endogenic stuff until after we already figured it out.
Right.
Because if we had seen the endogenic stuff first, we probably would have thought that we were an endogenic system.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's harmful. That's not good.
Like, I knew definitively I was a traumagenic system. There were instances because Carter wasn't the first host, so he remembered a lot of trauma. He was a trauma holder host, which was interesting in and of itself. Because he wasn't our first host. He was created to handle the trauma while our first host was dormant for 14 years. And so when we found out, we were in a Discord server, and like we had already taken some psych classes, so we knew what DID was. We were in therapy. We knew what DID was. And we knew an OSDD-1B system. And so, like, that helped the process a lot. But we thought originally that we were age regressing. And so we went into this server for age regressors, and there were systems in there, and it asked what type of system you were. And I asked because I didn't know what the fuck these words meant. And they were like, okay, do you have trauma? Do you not have trauma? Do you not know if you have trauma? Things like that. And I was like, oh, I have trauma. I knew definitively. And because, like, I also knew DID was caused from extreme childhood trauma. Because I had taken 2 psych classes at that point, and I had learned basics about DID. I didn't know near as much as I do now, and I actually offered to go talk to my old psych teacher and talk to her classes, and she was on board, but it was towards the end of the year, so they didn't have time. But it was like finding out we never would have went down the endogenic path because we knew for a fact we had trauma because Carter wasn't our first host. But like, and then there's Topamancy, which is just like a close practice. So like, why are you doing it?
Makes me very angry. Topamancy, if you're a Topa system or a Willowgenic system, that's another term that they like to use if they don't want to be racist, because newsflash, saying you have Topas is fucking racist.
Yep. Because it is a closed, I believe, Chinese practice?
Tibetan Buddhism, I think?
Oh, I wasn't sure. I was speaking out of my ass. This is why I wanted to do more research. What the fuck is Topamancy? Okay, so Topamancy is a closed practice within
Tibetan Buddhism.
Yeah, Tibetan Buddhism. Sure. Pretty sure. Please look it up if we're wrong. And it's kind of like having imaginary friends.
It's basically, people describe it as creating your altars.
But I don't know what that means within the closed practice, you know?
As far as, like, actual legitimate Topamancy, from what I understand, it is nothing near the same as being a system.
Okay.
It's fair. More of, like, God, I don't know. I saw something explaining it properly, and I forgot what Brangleberg.
Like, because there are like specifics in the DSM that's like not due to cultural association. And so like if they were practicing Topamancy, that would be the cultural association. And so those people, like, they could have DID, some of them could, but like it's probably the same percentage of the population. And it just, I don't know. But yeah, Willowgenic systems are people who think they can just will their altars into existence. Demogenic systems are people who are trying it out. And they piss me off.
That is, I heard a term recently trans DID,
What the fuck?
where someone thinks that they're supposed to be a system. Which is...
as a trans person, I want to explode. I feel it. I'm angry.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, that is...
I agree, Polaroid. Huh? Huh? But, like, and, like, that pisses us off because that reminds us of something. This is gonna go on a tangent. Sorry, chat. I can't. That just reminded me, like, people, whenever I tell them that DID has people with different ages in the systems, are like, oh, trans age is a thing? And I'm like, I want to fucking fight you. I'm like, I'm a trans person. That's not the same thing. It's called having DID.
Listen, just because, like, this is Ajax. For any of you who don't know, I'm 16.
I knew it was Ajax.
The body is 25. I am fully aware that the body is 25, but my mental age and the way that, like, I emotionally process things is of that of a 16-year-old.
Yep.
With the brain function, I am a 16-year-old with the brain functionality of a 25-year-old. And I am fully aware, and me and all the other fucking teenagers and littles in this system are fully aware of the body's age.
Yep.
Of, like, we know that mentally we may be that age, but we also have the capacity of a 25-year-old.
Yep.
It's just the brain being fucking dumb.
I don't know when I got up here. But yeah, fucking energetic kills me, dude. And they're like, system hopping. And I'm like, you can split someone else's altar. We've done that.
We've done that. But system hopping, where you can have an altar that's not how brains work.
Right. Because
memories are neurological pathways in your brain. That's not how... altars are memories in your brain.
And different parts of your brain, like, light up in a brain scan with different altars. Like, it's proven DID exists.
You can't just hop over into another person's brain. That's not how it works.
Nope. It's not. Because, like, yes, you can split someone else's altar, but they're not going to remember what they experience in your body. And if you claim that's what happens, I'm going to fight you. Not literally. All of these fight things are a joke.
If someone tries to convince you that system hopping is real, run far the fuck away from them, because that is an abuse tactic.
Yep.
99% of the time.
But, like, I'm just gonna flat out say it. We have 2 altars that split from the A system. They are aware of one of them. But it's not like they know what happens in our body and can see through our eyes.
Yeah, and it's not like you have memories of, being literally in the A system's body.
Right. Yeah, just gonna system hop into their system and beat the shit out of them. Fucking love that. That's great. But it's ridiculous. Alright? Everything that they say just doesn't make sense.
Like, another thing I know endogenics like to tout around is, like, system resets. Or, like, murdering altars or deleting altars. That's not how it works, guys. You can't just press a button and then all the altars go away.
If we could
Tia tried to do that and it didn't fucking work.
If we could do that.
Tia tried to make the altars go away, and then I came out and yelled at her.
If we tried to do that, we wouldn't have DID anymore. Because we've tried to be... Well, actually, I don't think we've ever been like, no, stop, don't do this. Besides when just a fuck ton of people show up, but we've never wanted everybody gone.
At the very beginning of finding out the system and trying to talk to people around me about it, and with them immediately saying, no, you're crazy, you just have BPD, you're making it all up, this isn't happening, all that fun stuff. I tried to be like, okay, no more, none of this, you guys can't, no more, stop, I'm not listening, I can't hear. And then Ajax showed up, and Lucas showed up, and then even more people showed up.
System
and
resets
I'm like,
are
okay.
a thing. System resets are a thing with Ramcoa systems. They are a way for handlers to make a lot of people go dormant all at once to, quote, reset what they've done. Interesting. I did not know that.
When endogenic systems use the term, it's basically 9 times out of 10 someone who was pretending to have DID, trying to lie their way out of it.
Yeah. When endogenics use it, it's usually that. Yeah, it's a stolen term. But, like, I know people who have had their entire system go dormant, but they don't call it a system reset.
Yeah, like, when I know when, like, endogenic system, they mean, like, the alters didn't go dormant, they're just gone.
Because it's like...
that's not how it happens, guys. Alters can't die, and they can't just disappear.
It's Alex. That one, like, put a thought in my head. It's not Alex, but I feel like Alex. I hate when that happens.
Probably very close.
Yeah, who was the new one that felt like Alex? I can't remember. Let me look. Don't judge me.
It's like that sometimes.
I've only fronted a couple of times. It happens. You first couple times you don't remember your name. I'm pretty sure it starts with an A. I could be Angel.
Isle.
No, that's not a name in our system. I've already been written down. I know that for a fact. I remember putting myself in plural kit, but I just don't remember the name.
Listen, if alters could die, do you know how many of these assholes would murder each other in this brain?
I felt that. But yeah, what I wanted to say is fusion is not alter death. And if you think it is, I really want to fight. But
I will system hop into your brain and fight you.
But you can grieve them. You can be sad. They're not dead.
Yeah.
We made a video about this on TikTok a couple days ago. They're not dead. Their memories live on in the fusion. But yeah, fusion is not alter death. No. I'm still... I know I don't have a picture. Dixon. That's what it is. Dixon. God. Fuck. Jesus Christ. This is what happens in DID. You just forget who you are. It sucks.
It'd be like that.
Our headspace is very vivid because of our programming, so people can fight, but they can't die. They just cannot die. I'm just like, yeah. We've had people fight in our headspace. We've had fist fights. But it's like, if anyone has ever watched Sanders Sides, it's like when anything happens to any of them, it just immediately gets recovered. They're just like, yes, you can fight me, but there will be no bruises. There will be no blood.
Like, it's not gonna do nothing, though.
It's not gonna do anything. No one will be physically hurt because we can't feel it. But it's just like, sometimes we think Thomas Sanders has DID, but that's a whole other topic.
That's another.
The way he talks about himself with the characters from Sanders' sides, I get a little worried. But that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day. Not to like diagnose somebody, but I'm just like a little sus.
Honestly,
sometimes you're just sus.
People...
It's like having gaydar.
Just like... yeah, it's like
it's like having gaydar.
Like, I'm honestly kind of sus of one of the fucking authors of my favorite mangaka, or I can fucking talk. I can say words.
Manga?
The authors of my favorite mangaka of Shigokara and Zombie Loan and the Beach Pit. There's a lot of instances of more than one person in a body, and easily turn this into DID allegory. And
can I mention how endos think you can system hop over a Discord call?
That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
I want to yell right now. I just want to scream. It's fine.
So much of just endogenic topics is a lot of, that's not how brains work, guys. I know this disorder feels like a magical fantasy thing.
It sucks.
But there's brain science going on, guys.
System hop is also a stolen term from Ramkoa. When your abuser makes you think they're in your head by making you split an interject of them.
Yeah, that's...
Yep, that completely makes sense.
Again, that's why system hopping is an abuse tactic.
Mm-hmm. But it's so warped now that it's unrecognizable, yeah. You know, I would love to... This is the tangent. I would love to get a system on here that knows about programming, that would be willing to talk about it. Mm-hmm. That would be really interesting. I think one of our mutuals has knowledge and experience with it, so I might talk to them. But it's just but this is just, you telling me that is like kind of pissing me off, because they're stealing terms from a serious issue.
Mm-hmm.
Ah! I'm just it's like when people are like trans-abled, trans-age, and I'm just like, I want to fight you. Fight is censoring. I'm being good for YouTube. So much of the fake claimable things about DID are Ramkoa things. I can see that. And like, I mean, polyfragmentation as well, because you can be, I mean, a lot of program systems, in my experience, have been really small. At least the ones I've seen. Like with like less than 30, but we've seen a couple polyfragmented Ramkoa systems as well. But it's like, it's not our fault that we have a fuck ton of trauma,
right?
Because they're like, polyfragmentation makes you an endogenic system, and I'm like, it doesn't.
That's what?
I'm professionally diagnosed. I've seen that on FTC. They like associate it with endos is that big alter count.
It's not I don't know why I've got 300 plus brain people in this body.
Every name we've ever held is over 400, but we've had fusions in there, so we are less than that.
If I could have a smaller system, if I could choose to just have a smaller system,
I would.
I definitely would. That would make things so much easier.
That would be a lot easier. I forgot that SP doesn't automatically delete people anymore when you want them to. So I had to go delete Ace. We were in our group since birth and are still connected, so we have almost 4K at the most recent estimate. Yeah. And that is very, like, I've seen that a lot with, like, cult abuse as well. And, like, things like that is, like, cult, like, ritual abuse survivors, like, have a lot. And I don't necessarily know why. I know cult comes with, like, brainwashing and stuff like that, but it's just, like, very, I don't want to say interesting, because that's not the right word, because I hate that term being used for me. But it's the only word I can think of. It's just very interesting to see the difference. Because, like, we are physical, emotional, and sexual abuse survivors, and we have a total of 400 names after all of the fusions and stuff. RAMCO stands for Ritual Abuse, Mind Control, and Organized Abuse. Okay, thank you. So yeah, that would be... Yeah, so that's what I meant. But... Bringo Burr.
Yeah, Bringo Burr.
And that happens. And people are like, you always should know who you are. And I'm like, well, part of identity confusion, don't you fucking understand? I think this is just going to get into a talk about fake claiming. But it's like, they're like, oh, high altar counts makes you not real. And I'm like, why? And they're like, introjects make you not real. And I'm like, one of the most common tropes in DID is the abuser altar. One of the most common tropes in DID media is the abuser altar. And that is the one thing they got fucking right. That can happen.
Interjects are a very normal part of DID, because guess what? Brains aren't creative.
It's been proven that your brain can't invent a face. And I think that's... And I've talked to my therapist about this, and I told her I think that's why... Because, like, when they first show up, they're very blurry. We can only see features. Like, we can only see, like, what eye color they have. What hair color they have. We can only tell very specific features. So we can only tell very specific features, but then once we give them a picture or something that represents them, then they have something to go off of. But it's been proven that, like, all of the faces in your dreams have been people you have seen, whether it be, like, on TV, in a crowd, whatever. Your brain can't make up a face. So it's like, brains are lazy. It's easier to absorb something in and create it as an alter than to make one up. And that's part of why we've been refragmenting, is because we can't create anybody that can handle the system and what we need to do, like the old alters did. And so the fusions are breaking and people are coming back that can handle what's going on. But people are like, fusion isn't real. I'm like, that's one of the main treatments for DID, motherfucker.
Fusion is very real.
Fusion has been, like, it was the main. It was the main, and is still one of the main paths for DID healing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say fusion isn't real? The fuck?
And then they'll also claim that if your goal isn't final fusion, like if your goal is functional multiplicity, then that means that you're faking.
Yeah, they have like this weird double logic. This is why I hate fake claimers. They just have this like weird double logic and it's super inconsistent. But like, there's just, we cannot in good faith support endogenic systems.
Mm-hmm.
Just not with everything we know about the disorder in science, everything we know about the disorder socially. We just cannot morally back endogenic systems. Like, the only thing I can say is you're probably a system that doesn't remember your trauma, and that's okay.
Yeah, like,
but don't adopt the term endogenic.
Like, if you're genuinely a system, if you are, genuinely experiencing this disorder, then that means you have trauma. And
you
then
just need to figure out what it is when you're ready.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you have to go digging for your trauma. It just means that it's there. And that doesn't make, like, it can be scary, yeah, finding out that that something happened to you that was traumatizing. But, like...
yeah, if you're over 100 people, you're faking. Shut the fuck up. Shut the hell your mouth. I agree. What's the difference between 99 and 100? What is the difference?
Right?
Right? It's 1. What is 1 alter going to do to make or break whether or not you're faking?
Right.
I've seen some people say under 1,000. I've seen some people say under 100. I've seen some people say under 50. I've heard some people say under 12. And then I've heard some people say you can only have 1 alter that is not you.
That is...
And I'm like, that's not how DID works.
That's how Jekyll and Hyde works.
That's how Adam and Amanda from Criminal Minds work.
That's how fake magic DID works.
That's how the people who don't understand DID conceptualize DID, because they're like, oh, 2 people.
No.
Sweetie. It's a little more than 2 people.
It's a little more than 2 people.
It's a little more than 2 people. I think the smallest system I've ever met or have interacted with is 5. 5 alters? I think that's the smallest system I've interacted with, but the biggest system I've interacted with, besides you in chat now, was Simply Fragmented. They have reached Final Fusion, but they had over 2K. And they're very public about that, so I'm going to say that. They talk about their Final Fusion journey. They're one of the only people I see talking about fusion.
Because I think for some people, fusion can be kind of like a scary topic.
But like,
which we definitely
we need to talk more about it. We need to talk about it, because some people are experiencing it and not knowing what the fuck is going on.
And that's how you get things like people interpreting it as your altar's dying, which is, again, I promise you, not how it works.
They're not dead.
They're not dead.
They're not dead. They live on through who they fuse with, and they can come back if something traumatic happens. We literally have had so many goddamn people come back, including me. We got alters that just like couldn't fuse, and so they fused for like 20 minutes and then broke apart because it didn't work. Some that just didn't work in general and couldn't fuse at all. Like, it's not an exact science, people.
We had 2 alters try to fuse and then just end up as like a weird sewn together amalgamation of each other.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think they're still hanging around like that because they're just like, yeah, no, this is fine.
I can see that.
This is okay.
Honestly, I think amalgam is a fusion of a bunch of fragments because he's like that.
Possible.
He's like a bunch of different colors and he's sewn together and weird. I don't know how else to describe him, but weird. But he's been in the body since we were like 7, so I think it just took a lot of our kid fragments and just like crumpled them up and made morbidly curious dude with 4 arms.
Yeah.
And like another thing people don't talk about with DID is sometimes you can experience phantom limb.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that.
I saw someone on Fake Disorder Cringe saying that claiming that you experience phantom limb is insulting to amputees.
But it's the experience of feeling a limb that's not there. If I feel 2 arms coming from here, I think it fucking counts.
People are ridiculous.
The fuck? Because you can feel phantom limb when you're having an out-of-body experience, when you're high.
Phantom limb.
You can
Phantom
feel
limb
it.
is a symptom, not a disorder.
Yeah. You can't fake claim a symptom.
You can feel phantom limb even if you have all of your limbs. It's a cycle. It's a brain thing. It's just a weird brain thing that brains do. Sometimes
my dad
they feel
had
things
gastric bypass and literally still felt like he was fat. It's a brain thing. Like, he literally, like, sometimes would have, like, weird, like, issues because of it. Like, weird, like, phantom issues because of it. If I suddenly feel a fucking tail, I think it fucking counts. Yeah, I agree!
Like, that's one of the things that, like, again, makes this disorder kind of feel magical and fantastical.
It makes
sometimes.
It feel like bullshit.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like I'm trying to bullshit you, but I'm not.
Like, this is a disorder where a child's brain that goes through trauma needs to escape from that trauma in any way it can. And so how is it going to do that? Sometimes it creates magical fantasy characters.
That's why I tell people, like, they need to think of this disorder from a childlike standpoint, because it develops in childhood. Mm-hmm. What is traumatic to you may not be traumatic. I mean, what is not traumatic to you may be traumatic to a small child. Like, you have to think of it that way.
Me being home alone as a 25-year-old, not a traumatic thing. Me being home alone as a 3-year-old, extremely traumatic.
See, it's fine. It's gotta think of it from a child's brain. And what happens when you develop a disorder in childhood? You grow up into an adult with the disorder. And then you start being an adult with the disorder and developing adults, people, and adult alters. And some people grow up with the system. Some people don't. We have some people who didn't. Like, age is weird in a system. But it's... I'm thinking. It's Ethan. Our brain doesn't work when it's Ethan. What was I saying? Please tell me what I was saying.
Child brain?
Yeah, so everything's from a childlike brain. So when you're an adult and you're developing adult alters, and you also have, like, the teen years in there, you're going to develop the teen alters. But, like, some of them grow up with you, some of them don't, and especially if they were dormant, they may not have grown up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's why I'm like, different ages don't make you fake.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people say that too.
Another extremely common thing in systems is child alters, because guess what? The trauma happened when you were a child.
And that is also a common DID media trope. I don't want to talk about the Hawaii Five-0 episode again, but I'm pissed off about it. I'm gonna talk about it again. So the Hawaii Five-0 episode, they triggered out... Okay, trigger warning for this, for, like, guns and everything. But they triggered out a little to hand the cops a gun. That's not safe. That is not safe. That child can still fire that weapon. And is probably going to accidentally fire that weapon. Or be scared. The Hawaii Five-0. It was Hawaii Five-0. One of them stupid cop shows. Criminal Minds, the first 2 times they did it, were fairly accurate. The first 2 times, it was like season 1 or 2, and then season 4, episode 20. I know that one specifically. Those 2 were fairly accurate. The rest of them, when they're switching like seizures, no. No. All of my alters are girls! That's possible. But, like, it's really fucking dramatic. Later in Criminal Minds, when the writers weren't doing their proper research, obviously, they just started to piss me off. Because they demonized so many mental disorders in the later seasons. Especially psychopathy. Even from the first season, it was psychopathy was, like, not... They never refer to it as antisocial personality disorder. They were like, psychopathy. And I'm like, it's antisocial personality disorder, you fuck. And sometimes they do refer to it as antisocial personality disorder. Sometimes they don't. All of my alters are allosexuals. Nope, not the case here. Some of them are ace. Some of them are not. But, like, I don't know. Just Endogenic Systems and fake claimers, they just piss me off. Just piss me off.
On the topic of endos pissing us off, the recent trend, apparently, of endos trying to sell their alters.
Oh, yeah. That.
What the fuck?
What the fuck? What the fuck? Yeah, we know a few systems with ASPD. We also know non-systems with ASPD. A couple of our mutuals have it. But they're like, psychopathy. And I'm like, fuck you, dude. And, like, they usually referred to it as DID. I don't think they ever referred to it as multiple personality disorder, but they said multiple personalities, and so they don't refer to them as alters and stuff like that. But that's, like, very common in DID media for the time being, because it's just outdated, but they get the disorder right, at least. But they're always the fucking killer.
Like, this person has dissociative identity disorder. Meet their multiple personalities.
Basically. Put the alters on the side of the road like a goddamn kitten. Oh my god, that's horrible. Oh my god. But no, so, like, any closing thoughts besides I fucking can't stand it.
Again, a lot of the problem, especially with endogenic systems, is that they spread a lot of misinformation, because a lot of the shit that they tout as real is not how brains work.
Nope. It is not backed by science.
But
there are some experiences that aren't backed by science because it's not researched enough. Like inner worlds and stuff like that. I don't think I've seen a single study about inner worlds. But I know a system getting into the DID research field. I love them. and I don't know if they're going for therapy or research or both, but they're like in that field and like working under someone like really high in the dissociative disorder field in their country, and I'm just like, I am proud of you.
Nice. Yeah.
But like, but yeah, endogenic systems don't make sense.
It's brains work, guys.
It's just not how brains work. It's just not.
I'm like, if by the off chance you may be thinking that you're an endogenic, someone out there watching this thinks that you may be an endogenic system. If you're experiencing this disorder, if you're experiencing having alters, dissociation, all that, it means that you have trauma in your childhood, and that's not a bad thing.
And
doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that this disorder is like awful and life ending and soul crushing and the worst thing ever. Like, it's not a bad thing to be traumagenic, because that's how the disorder works.
And there is something in the DSM for DID that says you can forget that you're forgetting things. You can have amnesia of your amnesia. You may not realize you're losing time. If that is something you do experience, that you do lose time, that's a big DID key.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have OSDD and you can have no amnesia. You can, if you're experiencing alters, if you have different voices inside of your head, if you refer to yourself in the mirror as you, think about it for a minute. And then realize there may have been something you've gone through. You don't have to dive into it, but you can acknowledge that there's something you probably went through to cause that. Because it's not like I don't want to say this in a way I'm going to say it, but it's not a quote-unquote normal human reaction.
Yeah.
It's a trauma
It's
reaction.
not how...
It's a trauma response. And that's just like... And that's that on that. So thank you for joining us. We very much appreciate you.